Would you take pride in describing yourself as a likable person? Are you highly skilled at anticipating the needs of others? And do you often put the needs of others before your own? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you might be engaging in people-pleasing behavior. Have you ever asked yourself why you engage in this behavior and how it really serves you? We're one episode into season 2 of School of Whispers, and we're already asking the big questions. So it's been a while since you've seen me behind the mic, and I have been in my season of rest and recovery, and I've participated in all these ceremonies and met all these healers and recorded all these episodes. And within all of this, I've really found what's gotten in between me and the person I'm truly meant to be. And a huge piece of that is people pleasing. So a few highlights from this episode. I talk about a golden needle experience, an esoteric acupuncture experience, where I met these extraterrestrial beings who I have been continuously working with. I talk about a few of the communities and the groups within Orlando that I found have really, really helped me be where I am today. And I talk about how people-pleasing has played a role in my life and how I've been working to overcome those tendencies. And I also cover safety, why we people-please, the sense of safety, and how a rewiring of your sense of safety can help you overcome the need to please. For those listeners who are returning, my people, welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. I've missed you so much. I'm so excited to engage with you within this season. And for anyone that's new, welcome. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you are here as well. And it's going to be a party. The season's going to be a lot of fun. If you enjoy the episode, please be sure to subscribe. We have new episodes every Monday, and to leave me your rating, review, and of course, to share it with a friend who needs to hear this message.
You are listening to the School of Whispers podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, and this is my space to get real, open, and weird about my life experiences as a psychic, medium, energy healer, and student of Chinese medicine. On the show, I'll be sharing my healing journey and the concepts I've learned along the way, and I'll be having guests on talking about the same sort of thing. I am so happy you're here, and I hope this show leaves you feeling inspired and empowered to learn how to listen to the whispers of your own body and spirit. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to season 2 of the podcast. It's been a long time since I have sat down and done a solo cast without really much preparation. I did record one about a month or so ago, but I ended up scrapping the whole thing because it didn't feel right. So I've done a lot of interviews, but yeah, this is my first time sitting down with myself, with your energy. And so it's like a welcome back to you, and as well as a welcome back to me. If you can't really tell by my voice, I lost it over Christmas. It's a really interesting story. When I was with my family over Christmas, my big intention was to ask for help in becoming the observer, to take a step back, and rather than getting involved in all the little games and the stories and the roles, I was really, really working on taking that step back. And yeah, well, one of my clients, she called it being the voyeur, the voyeur, the observer, and you get the gist, okay? I'm rambling on with that one, but what's interesting is I ended up losing my voice, and I don't know if you know this. If you're new, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. If you're returning, it's really, really, it feels good to have you close to me again. But if you don't know this by now, I really love to talk. It's hard to get me to shut up sometimes. And so I kept on getting the message, shut up and listen, just listen, observe, listen. And I was just whispering through the whole thing. Well, it's just a true testament to me. But that being said, I mean, I did have a lot of moments over this holiday break where I was around people where, where I normally would have felt really impatient, really cagey, like I want to burst out and freak out about what's not okay or whatever it is. And this whole observing behavior request lesson has really served me well. So there's so much to catch you up on, I know, and I don't know, do I want to give you a short summary? Let me sip my tea and think about that. All right, I got a yes. Oh, it was also a really good excuse to sip my tea. It's really yummy. It's actually not tea. It's a cacao, turmeric, maca, reishi, almost like the mud water stuff, but there's no coffee in it. Because if this girl does coffee, she is an anxious mess. But yeah, I got a yes. So to kind of give you a quick little whirlwind of the past few months, I definitely left this podcast feeling like a bit of a wreck. You could probably have heard it in my voice. And I'm hoping you can hear now how grounded and shifted I am. And something that really helped during that time, right when I finished the podcast, I was in turmoil for a bit, just really relearning how to be, feeling so uncomfortable in all my relationships and in myself. And I did a golden needle. It was a joint golden needle. So it was Casey and myself. We've done this before. So if you're new, golden needle is an esoteric acupuncture protocol. It can be done distally. So it can, one of my newer clients, he was laughing. He was like, "Oh, so you're a voodoo priestess?" And yes and no. The name's not voodoo. The name is acupuncture, Chinese medicine, qigong, but it's the same sort of thing. And so Casey and my professor, Dr. Adamson, came over and he did it in person for us. So he did a healing to clear us out, and then he needled each of our chakra centers. And as I mentioned before, this can and is absolutely possible to be done distally. I do a distal acupuncture session with golden needle probably once every 2 to 3 months. And I've realized it's a really powerful tool to help me get back on track and to help me process things. And so Casey came over. She was just about to do ayahuasca, which we will cover in, I think I'll publish it for next week's podcast. Because it was about reflecting on the year of 2022. Which, by the way, it's 2023. Happy New Year. All right, Stephanie, reel it in. This is like something I'm really trying to work on this year after I've listened to my podcasts. And I know I'm doing this now, but I tend to just go off into different tangents. But I'm mostly good at circling back and bringing the point, because what I do is I pause and I re-listen to what I was saying. What was I saying? Yes. So we did the golden needle, which within this protocol, you enter a trance state, and you often will, and I think it depends on the practitioner as well as your intention, but you may go through past lives, enter different dimensions, meet your higher self. You can talk with past loved ones. It's really an infinite sort of possibility when you enter the golden needle space. And so Casey and we experienced I had experienced this really interesting life as a baby bear. And it was funny because at this point, what happens is we talk about what we're seeing, and Dr. Adamson, my professor who does this work and has taught me it, he talks us through and he asks us questions. So Casey's having this really beautiful moment as like this Native American with this beautiful woman by the water, and there's a black snake, something. It's just, it seemed very graceful, peaceful, profound. Meanwhile, I'm this little baby bear and I'm following my mama, and I'm like, "You're the best thing in the world. I love my mama." And as I grow older and I eventually meet my untimely death, and I was playing with another bear when I should have been following my mama bear. And this big ass male grizzly just pummeled the baby bear that was on top of me playing, and I start sprinting through the woods and I climb up a tree. And I remember seeing my mama climb up the tree. That's what helped me decide that this is what I need to do. But I didn't really climb up quickly, and I had to stop because I remember Casey was saying, I see this beautiful woman by the water right now. And we're kind of in the same scenery. She's in the forest as well as myself. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I just threw up and fell from a tree because the grizzly bear came up and shook the tree, and then I fell to the ground. But what was interesting is in this past life, I learned that death is really peaceful. It's a homecoming, which was really a perfect segue into this chapter that I've been in of the sweet surrender of just laying there and allowing, whether it's death, whatever energy, the force of the universe to come, and to trust that it's going to be okay. So that happened. We entered another past life where Casey was my mother. I was her son. Funny with that mother-son dynamic, or that mother dynamic for me again. And we were in poverty. It was just, it was a tough life. And then, so she died, and she's like, I don't know where I am. I'm not in a past life. I'm not. And we were wondering, is she in the womb? What's going on? She just sees white. And then all of a sudden, in that past life, after she died, I killed myself. And I immediately entered this space that wasn't human. And I was like in a test tube, and I became an insect. Yes, so I was in the test tube, and I was surrounded by these beings watching me. And then one of them poured the vial of me in the test tube, and I became an insect. And then I became the consciousness of insects, and which is a pretty simple consciousness, but also really busy. And then I felt like I was placed into my body, but I still had my eyes closed, and I was looking around me, and there was these crazy motherfuckers, these crazy looking beings who had like wrinkly, almost pale purple translucent skin, these big eyes, no mouth, and kind of like stringy hair, and they had like white robes on, and they were, what I realize now, because I've worked with them since, is the way they communicate. It's like they roll their upper body in a big circle, kind of like if you're doing Kundalini, if you ever done Kundalini before, sometimes a move to do is just keeping your lower half stationary, and with hinged at your hips, you're moving forward and back, forward and back. I'm doing it right now if you can't hear it. And they would roll their heads, which I've learned since then is a typical way that Kali transmutes. But they called themselves the engineers. And they told me that we would be working together. And I don't know if I've written about, I'm not going to look back in my journals right now to remember all of it. But what I do know is that since meeting with them and working with them, it felt like I was being rewired. And I guess the engineers and the introduction with the test tube and the insect consciousness, it was just this shift in consciousness. Yeah, they're really interesting guys. They've showed me their origin story, which I received in meditation. It was just like a really interesting, multi-dimensional experience. And I remember really the big message and the big things that stuck with me it was like, I was in this dimension where there's all these different types of beings, and some that looked like the engineers, some that didn't. And there was like this big ass worm looking thing that emerged from the crust of this dimension. And this worm thing would lift itself up and then pummel itself down to the earth with its mouth open on top of like certain beings. And some people understood what was happening and they were like pretty chill about it. Others were panicking, freaking out, running around. Others dropped into meditation and kind of levitated or disappeared. Obviously this isn't how humans react, but I remember watching it thinking this is very akin to probably how the end of the world would be. Some people would be like, yep, saw this one coming, and others would just be sheer panic. And this worm thing absorbed the engineers, the original 5 or 6 engineers, and then it turns out this worm wasn't even a sentient really being. It wasn't like a worm. It was just a teleporter in a way. And then the engineers all understood what was going on. They had seen the prophecy of this and they didn't have to communicate. It was all telepathic. And then so long story short, what I realized in that was when in the face of chaos, or if you see others succumbing to chaos, it's theirs. It's their own. And those who understand and they know, they don't have to feed into that energy. And in fact, you're allowed to trust. You're allowed to see others panicking and losing their shit. And you can be totally chilled and trusting and welcoming to this shift, to this teleportation, I guess. And after that point, I went to a hape ceremony. It was like a week or so later, and that was another huge game changer for me. So it was through Mind's Eye, and I will link them in the show notes. Really wonderful group. JP, who leads it, shout out to JP, great guy. And it was led by this woman, Cheval Rose, and Josh Rose. I'd never heard of them. And I was well into my hape practice by then, but I'd never done it with other people or had been served it. And the experience, so Cheval and Josh, who I will have on the show in the near future, this season, absolutely. Shout out to them too. You guys, yeah, I've really met some wonderful, life-changing people who have shown me what's possible. And that was a really big thing in that hape ceremony. I was shown what's possible. And I purged and healed a lot. And I just remember waking up the next day feeling so light and so wonderful. And I met another woman at that ceremony she was the one who brought that specific hape, which was called Nawa. And she's going to be on this season, Natasha. She's a medicine woman who lives in Peru, and I ended up doing combo with her. And it was my first time doing combo ever, and I will do a podcast kind of talking about that. But within that ceremony as well, I also was introduced to another plant medicine called Sananga, which are eye drops, and she's also been a huge game changer for me. So wow. I keep on saying game changer, and it's like I've become more and more aware of the game we all play, of the role we all play, and what type of game and what kind of character I want to be in, and recreating and rewriting the story. It's been fun. It's been scary and hard and really fun. And so after doing the combo, and so that, again, I will do a whole podcast dedicated to what combo is, what Sananga is, and kind of my experience with them, because since this podcast, season 1 finished, I've done 2 combo ceremonies with 2 very different practitioners, 2 very powerful experiences. And the second practitioner, Danica, shout out to Danica, shout out to everyone I've mentioned, so far. She's also blasted my mind open with what is possible for myself as a healer, as a practitioner, as a space holder in the future. So long story short, definitely I made the right choice in stopping myself, honoring the season that I was in, and giving myself space to feel like shit, because eventually that shit feeling drove me to seek external help. And I have found this community, these new friends, and a new sort of fire within me. But yes, the big lesson that has been coming up again and again has been the lesson or the revolution of my whole entire perspective, the game, the life around pleasing. I have lost the need to please. And I know that, well, I don't need to define people pleasing to you, but I do know that there are definitely so many levels and shades of gray on what it means to be a people pleaser, why you seek to please, and what you do in order to reach that goal. But I heard this, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I heard this on another pod, and it was somebody saying, when you are interacting with someone from a place of insecurity or fear, you are being manipulative. And it doesn't matter how you are operating from that place. What matters is your intention. Like energy knows. You can't lie to energy. You can tell yourself, I love chocolate cake and chocolate cake is good for me and it's this, that. But your knowledge inside is like, ooh, but when I eat a lot of chocolate cake, I get acid reflux, I get diarrhea, and I'm a little bit scared to eat this cake right now, but I'm going to say externally again and again, I love chocolate cake and it loves me back. But your knowing is way too strong to fool. And so even if you're interacting with someone being the most pleasant, likable, accommodating person, if you are doing these things because you want to keep someone close to you or you want them to believe I'm really good but also I might be really bad, and if they believe I'm really good though, then that'll help me believe I'm not bad as well, right? Or if I can get this person to like me, then it doesn't matter if my mom or my dad doesn't like me, or, the story, it goes on and on and on. And I do want to say this sort of acknowledgement requires a deep amount of awareness. You may be aware of what's driving your pleasing behaviors, or you may hear this and say, this lady's full of shit. I'm not trying to convince you that you're a messed up, manipulative person at all. I'm hoping that my experience and my awareness may, though, trigger a level of courage and maybe radical responsibility for you to look at your own life and your own behaviors. Pleasing is not a good thing, and it's not a healthy thing. It's not something that's going to serve you or the people around you. And when you find yourself changing your personality, shifting your boundaries or sacrificing your boundaries, even changing your voice. I remember I was with a friend recently, and she really is the most lovely, pleasant person to be around. And when we went to go, or she and I are just talking, shooting the shit, and we went to order food, her voice completely changed and was like, hi, oh my gosh, oh, I'm so sorry. And so many sorries and sorries. If you feel like you're constantly apologizing. And I didn't hear her say that and go, oh, this bitch is being manipulative. It was more I was listening saying, oh, I remember putting so much energy into wanting to be liked and leaving people this impression of, oh, what a lovely girl. She's so beautiful on the inside and the outside. I want to be just like her, or whatever it was. There's so many reasons behind pleasing. But yeah, it was just empathy that I was feeling because I've been there before. But yeah, if you are finding yourself engaging in these sort of behaviors, then that might be a sign that you're doing the people pleasing thing. So I recently wrote something, and it was in November, and it was right before doing my second combo ceremony, which really, really, when I was sitting in it, throwing up, feeling like shit, Danica was right there next to us saying, what am I throwing up? Because she told us when you're in combo and you ask questions, you're in such an open state and a surrendered state. It's really easy to get answers. Every time I threw up, I heard, you're throwing up the need to please. And when I came out of that ceremony, I really felt it. But to really give you an idea of what this felt like for me, and maybe it'll resonate with you, I want to share something I wrote in November before that ceremony that it made me really sad. When I revisited this after ceremony, it made me sad, but then I added on to it. So here we go. You know that reflex, that gut survival reflex to get your peers to like you, your boss, your professor, your doctor, your neighbors, your clients, the person bagging your groceries. You try to feel into their mood and show up in a way which makes their day. You go home, rewinding the day, replaying every smile, everything you said. Were you enough? Did you get them to like you? Usually the response within is no, you didn't do enough. You have no clue if they really liked you because they don't know you. You understand this logic. They don't know if they like or dislike you because they don't know you. What does it matter anyways? And then, so that's where it ended. What does it matter anyways? And then on the 4th of December, after 2 days of ceremony, I wrote this. What about, instead of this place of lack, every interaction could come from a place of loving gnosis? I know myself deeply, and in this knowing, I can know you. In my darkest corners, I've chosen love. I've chosen to see. I see myself. I see you. I love myself, and I love you. More than romantic, affectionate love, it's the love of all the senses. Without turning away from hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, and tasting who I truly am, I've said yes to loving the truth. I've said yes to living the truth. And as I work into this truth, I get to love. Love more expansively than I thought possible. It overflows. Every person, every friend, family member, acquaintance, stranger can be included in this love. And so it is. Oh, I got emotional reading that. I don't know how I did it. Well, I was in a state then, a post-ceremony state. But it was like in those 2 little entries, I was able to describe years, 26 years, 27 years, 27 years of not really understanding the kind of pain I was feeling over having to constantly please and anticipate. And in doing that, I was setting aside my own truth and my own, I guess, sense of well-being and like almost sense of well-being, being in a sense of being able to be fully in my body. Because in having to accommodate and please for others, I was pushing down and turning myself away from what I actually needed. I was shutting that part up and choosing deafness. I was choosing not to listen, really subconsciously. And the reason I was choosing that was because of how unsafe I felt. I felt really, really unsafe all the fucking time. And I'm so grateful that I wasn't the kind of person that when you feel unsafe, when your nervous system's out of whack, like I didn't explode like I was a landmine. It was more of this internal anger and distrust of myself, which turned into distrust of others. And it manifested as digestive issues, brain fog, lack of energy, feeling really like I choosing slowly over time. It went from being like really extroverted, needing energy so that I could show everyone, so I could show myself that I was truly good, so that I could, believe it. But then at the end of the day, I was exhausted. And then so it kind of turned into this really icky feeling after really genuine good interactions. Not every time, but very often. And it's and now that I'm thinking about it, me saying, oh, I'm so grateful that I wasn't explosive. Well, that wouldn't have fit my narrative, right? If I was wanting to please and have other people to want to be around me, then why would I be explosive and angry? That would have scared everyone away, and that wouldn't have met my goal of being pleasant. And me in saying this, it's not like this was relevant or my driving force in every human interaction. I definitely, in hindsight, looking back, I see how I have done this in a lot of ways, in a lot of instances, but not in all. And I see how I have been continuously shedding to the degree that I was able to shed, to the degree that I was able to know and see myself. Yeah. And I'll never do that again. I remember when after going on vacation this year and doing a really big energy medicine, Bufo 5-MeO DMT, which I will get into. I'm like sprinkling it in here and there, but I'm really not fully ready to share that whole experience for a lot of reasons, but it was definitely the most powerful experience of my life. I took this big trip to go do it, and when I came back to normal life, it was hard. It was hard. And I remember, though, at one point, somebody that I normally would be accommodating and pleasing because they think so highly of me, and I like them as a friend, and I want to be a good friend to them. And, in the past, there was definitely that pleasing dynamic that I think we both were subconsciously aware of and playing a role, playing a game in. And then all of a sudden, I'm tired of that game. And I remember them coming up to me, and I was just not in the mood to talk, and me just saying, I'm not in the mood to talk, and I'm not in the mood to listen. Because I think too, what was hurting then was a lot of people wanted to give me advice, and I love getting advice when I ask for it. But sometimes people give advice that, one, you didn't even ask for, or two, you don't really need. And especially when you're feeling sort of low, I felt like I just didn't belong. It was for the first time ever. I felt like I didn't belong in this human dimension, which it's a weird feeling. I've never felt that way before. And yeah, a lot of people were like not really telling me what I needed to hear, but I also wasn't asking for them to tell me what I needed to hear. So yeah, I just said, I don't want to talk. I don't want to listen. And they kind of looked at me like, excuse me? And they handled it so well. And I'm so grateful that they were so respectful. And I was sat there when they walked away because they were like, oh, I can be here with you and hold space, or I can leave if that's what you prefer. And I said, yes, thank you. I remember just seeing the look on their face. What the fuck? Who is this chick? But they left, and I sat with that energy for a little bit. And before doing Bufo, I had worked on setting boundaries, speaking up for myself, things like that. I think I mentioned it in last season towards the end. But in doing it, I felt deeply uncomfortable because that fear of not being safe was really underlining. When I look at my people pleasing, I think the two main drivers were this belief of how unsafe I am, as well as this fear of being alone. But, I think the two tie together. You are afraid to be alone because you feel really unsafe. And this time, after, I think it was like the first time of me returning and not playing into that game, that dynamic, and I didn't feel uncomfortable. I felt really comfortable in sitting with that, as simple as that was. And I've set much harder boundaries in the past and felt good about it. But it was just such a simple scenario that felt really profound. And I want to talk a little bit about safety, the sense of safety. When I did these medicines, one of my intentions was to experience my full love and my full truth and to feel safe while doing it, because I was really, really afraid of feeling my full truth and being like, oh, well, now my life's going to be blown to shit, to smithereens, because at that point I had been working a lot more actively on the people pleasing, and I had that gnosis moment. So gnosis, Gnosis, it's a Greek word for knowledge, but what it really means to me is wisdom, because wisdom is the combination of knowledge and emotion. So yeah, I'm a smart girl. I read a lot. I was a good student, and I have this ability to cognitively absorb things and read about things. So like, for example, like ancestral healing, I had read about it. I had experienced little trickles here and there of what this means, like little downloads from my guides, my ancestors. But I hadn't really fully felt it until I did like ayahuasca or bufo. I hadn't really felt what it really is like to be suffering through something that's not yours, and your whole default network is shut down. So there's beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're like, I'm working on something that isn't fully mine. And it's been repeated again and again. And in these medicine spaces, I felt like, one, my ancestors were all around me, laying their hands on me, saying, thank you, we love you. And then I also felt like internally something was rewiring, recoding my DNA. And from those plant medicine experiences, I've gained the gnosis. I've been able to combine the knowledge that I've received externally from Instagram and, all the trendy healing things. But I mean, I don't want to call it trendy because that seems to reduce it to something that's a trend and that's passing. To me, it's some of the biggest work that all of us have come here to do. And then so I combine that knowledge with the emotion, the entire experience to gain that gnosis. And so I've gained the gnosis of, and you might be hearing this and you might be like, oh, for no shit. But you may have grown up feeling very safe in disagreeing and not having to please. And if that's the case, more power to you. You must be really far on this journey. And I'm so excited to live life from this lens fully. I'm still learning and practicing, and I know it's a part of my journey, and it might not be part of yours, but I gained the gnosis. I know I did that thing again where I go into circles, but we have returned. The gnosis that not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. And my safety is not contingent on people liking me. I can be very unliked and still be safe. I hope you heard Mana's beautiful singing voice through that. Anything you want to say?
No.
Okay. When I am living my life as my true highest form, it means I no longer have to live for anyone else but me, which means that some people aren't going to like me, either because I'm triggering something which craves that same freedom. They're seeing me do me, and their insides are like, why the fuck can't we do that? And ego is like, because we're not safe to do that. Or simply because I'm just no longer seeking to please them. And it's okay. My shoulders just dropped. It's okay. I think I've been writing that down and expressing that and not really actually believing it. And it's funny because since then I've been really aware, and I know it's because it's such a strong lesson inside of me right now. So other people are showing up as mirrors of this. I've become aware that a lot of people I've come across have said things like, I don't need everyone to like me. I don't care if anyone likes me. I'm not here for the popularity, things like that. And I think I've heard one person say that, and I actually believed them. I had to take a step back and use my discernment and think, do I actually? And this was after a while of me noticing this common theme and hearing people say this in front of me. And I think it was that one woman I truly believed. Everyone else, I heard them say it, and I was thinking, damn, wouldn't it be nice if you could just admit to yourself, I'm scared, I'm overloaded, I feel incredibly triggered and overwhelmed by the feeling that this person doesn't like me or X amount of people don't like me. And so I can't handle that, so I'm just going to pretend and externally say, I don't give a fuck. And it comes off as anger and bitterness. And that's how you know that they're not being honest with themselves when that anger, those hard, low density emotions come out. And sometimes, I'm not going to say that to them because it's not my place and not everyone's ready. And I think it's kind of rude. It's sometimes when I can hear what someone's actually saying and like me being like, no, this is what you really mean, when they're just not ready to hear it. But yeah, I just want to give them a hug and say, I totally know what this feels like, and it's totally okay to feel this way. It's totally normal. When we're children, our survival relies on our parents liking us. And so when that happens at a young age, when little triggers here and there, or one big trigger or many big triggers can contribute to that, or not even our parents, just our core circle, our siblings, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, when that perspective, that thought, desire of being liked, being looked at and receiving an affectionate gaze, or like a non-menacing gaze, or even a gaze that's present. I think what happens sometimes too is some of us, we grow up in families where people aren't exactly in their bodies or present. It's like they look at you, but they're not all there. When those needs aren't met when you're young, then we do what we can to survive. And it may come off as that one extreme of really projecting and having a tough shell and saying, I don't give a shit if you don't like me, or being like I described myself as a little girl to a friend. I said, I was like a little puppy that was well groomed with fluffy ears that you could pet, and you could put a little silly dress on her and she'll do the little dance for you, and you could put all the bows, and I'd be like, I'm just happy that you're happy. And yeah, it's sweet, but it's also really toxic. So now that I've done these plant medicines that have, and I got this from Bonnie. If you listen to the Whispers of Trusting the Medicine with Bonnie Biagioli, that was something that she was talking about, how plant medicine, it turns off your default network. So our default network is kind of like our conscious nervous system that is aware of what's in front of you, what's behind you, what's ahead, how are you interacting in a space. It's very conscious and aware, and it does have a strong influence from the ego. And the ego is not necessarily a bad thing. The ego's purpose is to survive. And of course, we need the balance and the blah, blah, blah. But in these medicine ceremonies, I've had the privilege of having that system be shut off so that my subconsciousness can come through. And what's been trapped in that subconscious library has been an overloaded nervous system of feeling unsafe. And in doing Bufo, I learned how safe I truly am. And again, it was a gnosis. It was a combination of knowledge and feeling that I'm not going to really bother to try to explain to you too deeply, because it's really something you got to feel to know. But I will say that it's the kind of safety that doesn't keep you from experiencing pain suffering, rejection, conflict. It's like you are experiencing all those things within this container of safety. All of these things are happening and it's okay. And actually we welcome it because we are so infinitely loved and held. And it's not romantic love. It's a love of all the senses, as I mentioned before. And what's been on the other side of this, since I've dug out those parts of my subconsciousness, I've been able to shine light on the parts of my internal network that's connected to the cloud, the Akashic records, the collective consciousness that is capable of some pretty fucking cool shit. I'm going to go into this more when I'm ready to talk about Bufo. But I've in the last sort of phases of this time period in my life, I've unlocked light language. And what language is it's like the language of healing, the language of energy, and it can be done with our hands, with our voices, with, I guess, other things. I don't really know. I'm still really new to it, but I do talk about this more in my interview with Danica. It's interesting how our podcast topic we really dove into heart light language. And this year, mine opened up and I got to experience hers, and I could feel how I had no idea what she was saying through my human brain, but internally I could feel it affecting my body. And personally, I always knew that it was there, and I very often felt silly or stupid or insecure about letting it come out. And that whole wall was shattered. And now I'm taking baby steps to bring it more and more out to the front. It's changed my effectiveness as a healer, healing others, but really right now I'm using it to heal myself. And it feels so good doing it. I feel so at home. I feel so much closer to home than I've ever felt in my life. And home is me. And it feels really good to feel my truth and to feel safe while doing it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. The people-pleasing revolution continues. I would love to hear if you're a recovering people pleaser, how you are moving through it. And I want to celebrate you. Good fucking work. If you are someone who is still kind of on the other side of the door and you're knocking on it saying, I'm done with this, but why can't I stop? I feel for you. And I know how strong you are. And I know you're going to get there. And I want to tell you that my unsolicited advice for you, I think the thing that will get you there is trusting. Because with trust comes new opportunities that you will have the option to say yes to. And if it scares you in a way where you're afraid of losing people or not looking or coming off a certain way, then that's usually a sign that it's a time to say yes to this shift. I remember right before the ceremony with that intention, that morning I was like, oh my God, I'm so afraid, because I know what can happen if I live my truth is I might lose people who can't handle my truth, because I'll know that I don't want to live any other way. And that fear has left real quick, because I've learned that with truth comes love and connection. Okay. And I love you, and I loved connecting with you, and I hope that we will have a really great season 2, and I won't have too many breakdowns, but I probably will, but I hope that I will have enough clarity to share and to express them with you here in the space. If you would like to work with me, you can find my information, my social medias, in the show notes, as well as my website, schoolofwhispers.com. Please check it out if you haven't in a while. I revamped it. I've done new services, new prices. I have an option for students. Because I am a student right now getting my master's, I know the struggle. So I have a new option where if you are a student and you'd like to work with me, receive a healing or a reading, or if you're in the Orlando area but are interested in the plant medicine ceremony, please send me an email telling me where you're going to school. Tell me a little bit about yourself. It's always nice to hear about who someone is and why they want to work with me before really, us making that decision together. And we will figure out a donation price or a price that will work for you. I'll be feeling your energy next week.